fall down. Mama, I'm fine, don't worry. Go back out to sea, sail home, sweet home, where the ships must go to get all cleaned up and put away.
Never gets old. Never gets old. And you're muted. Unmute.
Okay, better now, right?
Better now. Dakota, hello. How the heck are you?
I'm doing great. It's so good to be here again with you.
Oh, shoot. Banner.
What?
How would they know? Welcome, everybody. Welcome
wait.
to today's live. Happy Friday.
Our media assets.
Yep, I got it.
Wait, is that us? I think that's us.
What?
In the corner?
Oh,
Me and you?
yeah. Look at that. Thanks, Dakota.
Makes such
All
a
right,
good team. All right, let's get into this.
Let's get into it. Welcome, everybody. For those who are tuning in on YouTube and Facebook, this is our weekly live and our favorite of the month because it's Q&A. Feel free to drop a comment if you have a question, which you should because it is Q&A. So today's all about you and your questions. And we're also going to be talking a little bit about the revision. Dakota, do you want to maybe share briefly a little bit about what we might be able to segue into today?
Yeah. So, I mean, and that's the thing is that we figured people might have a lot of questions about the May revision for the California budget and all that. So as part of this Q&A, especially if you have questions about that, let us know and we can look into it. Now we've prepared mostly to talk about just Medi-Cal and IHSS related things for the May revision. And there's not a whole lot of information to go over, but if you do have specific questions about other things about the California budget, proposals, things they might change that you want us to weigh in on, let us know what those things are. And it is helpful if you have a question about the budget. It's especially helpful if you can put in some keywords so that we can look up what is being proposed. And if you have like the page number, I've got the budget summary from the governor's website on the other tab here. So if you know the page number where we can find the proposal, that would be extremely helpful. But otherwise, if you just want to put in the keywords and stuff so we can Control F, try to find where it's up. We might be doing a little bit of searching, a little bit of research during this Q&A, but we are prepared to talk about a little bit about the Medi-Cal change, especially. That's the big one that I think a lot of people are concerned about. So is there anything we want to talk about before we get into that, or do you just want to jump right into the asset limit?
Well, we can. Is there any other updates? What's going on in the world over there at the office, Mr. Dakota? How any thoughts or things you might want to share before we jump into the main topic or address any questions that start coming through? Well,
I mean, here, nothing worrying or concerning. I believe if you'd seen Myra was here last week and we were talking about the seminars. Seminars are over now, but she was telling us about some of the favorite things. She did happen to mention that we have some new people in the office working hearings, doing other work as well. So yeah, things are going great over here, and we do have good people working on hearing cases to try to win more of those. But yeah,
and
other than that, nothing too worrying about how things are going otherwise in the IHSS world.
Yeah, and it sounds like there's been a little bit of an uptick recently in appeal decisions in regards to maybe some decisions that are less controversial. I know for the past couple of years, that's been a big challenge, a big struggle with seeing a lot of very odd decisions that are coming out in the appeals space. And so lately, it seems over the last couple of months, things have been kind of leveling out a little bit. I don't know if there's people here that are watching or that are going to come to the stream. If you've recently gone through an appeal, how you felt your decision was. We know we've had some concerns over the last several years, seeing just some very unpredictable decisions that were quite shocking and negatively. And so it's nice from what I've heard. Dakota, I don't know if you want to shed light on that at all, but great to see some of the newer comers here to be taking over in the appeal space and representing families in front of these judges, which is a scary thing to do. So hello to Luke. All right.
So I think let's get into the budget. Let's talk about what the big changes that mostly affect our families are. Now, to briefly go over IHSS, for IHSS, it's really simple. Basically, nothing is directly changing IHSS. It's just the Medi-Cal changes that could have effects on people who are already on IHSS. As a lot of us know, IHSS is a benefit of Medi-Cal. You have to have Medi-Cal in order to get IHSS. So if someone loses their Medi-Cal, they're going to lose IHSS as well. So, the Medi-Cal changes are what's really going to affect people. Should I briefly explain what the budget proposal is and what the timeline is for it being finalized before we get into the specifics?
Yeah, I think that'd be helpful.
Okay, so for anyone who doesn't know, very briefly, this is the governor and the governor's financial team have come up with their proposed ideas for where to spend the money and where to cut back money in order to present a balanced budget. Now, the initial proposal came out months ago, back in January, and there were some things of concern then. I think one of the big ones was that counties were going to pay for the majority of IHSS hours, and that was a bit of a concern back then in January. But now, here in May, just a couple of weeks ago, was when they released the revision that puts takes all of the feedback they've gotten into account and the changes and how much money they made and things like that, and is sort of the final proposal from the governor of how the money is going to be spent. This now goes before the Assembly, and the Congress people and the Assembly people, they will have meetings, committees, hearings. They'll hear from the public, they hear from experts, and decide which parts of this they want to modify or change or remove or anything like that. And so that's what's been happening. They've had their hearings, they've heard from experts, they've heard from the public, and they have to come to a final decision, and the governor has to agree with their final decision by June 15th. That's the cutoff date. So in the next couple of weeks is when they're going to finalize all this stuff. That's basically the brief overview. I think they have already done all their hearings, as far as I know, unless they schedule some more emergency meetings before the final vote. But they have met to finalize this stuff. You can go and watch it if you want to hear what they've said yourselves. But I have to warn you, it is very long and very boring. Just in the last week or so, they've had probably 8 to 10 assembly meetings about the budget, and each one of those is about 6 hours long. So it's a lot to dig through. This is their full-time job, is getting together these meetings and talking about healthcare and transportation and all kinds of stuff like that. But I did watch a little bit of it. And I can share a little bit about that for what's related to Medi-Cal. So in regards to Medi-Cal, a couple big proposals. One of them was about reassessments or redeterminations happening more often. And I sure hope we still have Caleb. I can't see him anymore, but maybe he's still here. I'll just keep going. Where instead of doing the redeterminations for Medi-Cal, okay, I can see him again.
Sorry about that. Lost connection briefly.
All right. It's all right. It's all right. I'll keep going. Instead of doing the redeterminations for Medi-Cal every year, their plans to do them every 6 months. Now, I have some concerns about the difficulty of that. And they've said that people are going to be removed from the program sooner because the determinations happen more often, so they'll find out when someone doesn't need to be there more quickly, something like that. It's supposed to save them money. But since the January proposal where they mentioned they were going to do that, they've now said that it's actually going to be a slow rollout on that, and that people are just going to be gradually put on the program, and nobody's going to actually have their increased rate of redeterminations, and nobody's going to be removed because of increased rate of determinations until I think late next year.
Mhm.
So there's going to be no effect on people for now for at least another 12 months. So nothing to worry about there. The asset limit is the other.
Sorry,
Oh, go ahead.
to be clear, I don't think it's going to be late next year. I think it's going to be early next year.
Possibly. I mean, I think some parts of it are going to be implemented, but I think what they said is that no one's going to be, or it's going to be fully implemented by October of 27, I think is what I heard.
Yes, and I think they could start implementing some of it by January, but we're hoping.
Yeah, that's most likely. It sounds like it's going to be a gradual process where as people's redeterminations come up, they will be then scheduled for a new one that is sooner. So it's probably going to happen just when you get your meeting. They're going to be like, okay, your next meeting's going to be in 6 months. And they're not going to just suddenly spring one on you all of a sudden, maybe until October.
Mhm.
But yeah, so that's the deal with that one. Not really much for people to worry about if you're on Medi-Cal, but I did have questions, and I'm sure a lot of people do, of like, is this really going to be saving California money if they have to do twice as much work? I don't know. I'm not an expert. But the asset limit, this is what everybody's really concerned about, is the Medi-Cal asset limit. So for people who don't know, for a very long time, for several decades, up until about 4 or 5 years ago, if you were on the regular traditional Medi-Cal program, you could not have any assets above $2,000. As one person, $2,000. As a couple, $3,000. Now, there were some exceptions to this. Your car didn't count. Your house didn't count. Some basic necessities, things didn't count. And we've heard from Lisa Ramsey from MediHelp, who has explained a lot about how you can avoid, certain assets being counted against you to stay on Medi-Cal. But that was the cap for a very long time. It was $2,000. And then some 3 or 4 years ago, they raised the cap significantly to $130,000. And that was sort of the temporary, cap, because they wanted to get rid of it entirely. But so they raised it first to $130,000, which meant a lot more people were now eligible to be on Medi-Cal. And then, I believe it's a year later, 1 or 2 years after that, they removed the cap entirely. Said there's no longer an asset limit on traditional Medi-Cal. So this is usually the Medi-Cal that's for seniors and those with disabilities. They usually get traditional Medi-Cal, and the asset limit was just removed entirely. No worry about whether or not you have assets, because this did especially affect a lot of seniors who could no longer work. They couldn't get health insurance through work, but they had assets, and they said, well, sorry, you can't get Medi-Cal. So that was what happened. And then last year, the budget came out. They were short on money, and they put out this proposal. The governor put out a proposal saying, we want to reintroduce the cap right back to $2,000, $2,000 asset limit. So everybody who's more than that's going to get kicked off the program. And this went before the assembly. This went before the Congress, and they did not go for it. They did not like the idea of putting it all the way back to $2,000. And so they compromised and said, let's put it back at the middle ground, the $130,000 cap. And that's what they did. So last year, they put it back at $130,000. Was it 130 or 120? I'm double checking, thinking myself. It was 130, right?
It's around there. I think.
I'm pretty sure
I think
it was.
you're right.
But
I think it's 130.
I could be wrong. It's over 100,000 at the very least. So
I think it's 130 for an individual, and then 160, and then 160 for spouses.
160.
I think.
Okay, all right, that sounds right.
Hi, Sarah.
And basically what's happened now is this year, even though we don't have nearly as much of a revenue problem as we did last year, they are now once again proposing to lower the cap to $2,000, which now we had talked about this a lot. And Caleb, you might want to weigh in on this, but we talked a lot about how unrealistic that cap is in 2026, right? Like that cap of $2,000 had been there since like the 80s and never got raised in all that time. And now $2,000, like you can hardly own a, furniture around your house and not have it cost more than $2,000, right? So it does seem a little bit extreme and ridiculous to want to put it all the way back to the cap that it was 20 years ago. But that's the situation. That's what's being proposed. Now, I did watch some of the Congress hearings on this about Health and Human Services. I couldn't watch it all because, like I said, it's just one subcommittee, 6 hours long. But it sounded to me like the Assembly was very much against reimposing this cap. One person said that the asset limits were draconian, was their word, and another seemed almost offended that they were being proposed this same asset limit again after just 1 year. So at least for the way they're talking, the way they're acting, it sounds like they're strongly opposed to reintroducing the asset limit at $2,000. Now, we had talked last year about, well, what if it was something like 10,000, 15,000, 50,000, something in between where, okay, it's not the 130,000 that's, almost anyone can get their assets down below that number. But what if it was something where it's still someone who doesn't have a lot, doesn't have several cars or multiple houses or things like that, but they still have some things, and so I don't know if maybe the council is going to go for another compromise where they get some number in between, but I definitely don't think, this is my personal opinion, I don't think they're going to approve the $2,000 limit.
So Brittany has a question that is a good segue, I think. So in general, what would happen to the IHSS income if we are still waiting for Medi-Cal to be approved? Some people fully rely on IHSS as their income. Just curious because it takes a while for regional center to provide for them to provide the waiver for Medi-Cal.
Now I'm trying to remember because in the past it's not been as much of an issue because Medi-Cal, the way they would do it would be that if you lost Medi-Cal temporarily for IHSS, you'd be put on residual. That's sort of like the in-between program, and you'd usually stay on there for a little while. I think currently you can stay on residual for 6 months. Is that right?
I believe so. I think it's 6 months. We'll have to get
there used
checked
to
on
be
that.
there used to be not a specific timing of it. It was basically just whenever your social worker went in and removed you, you'd be taken off residual. But I think, again, last year they proposed to make it so that it happened instantly. The second you lose your Medi-Cal, you lose your IHSS. And again, the council didn't go for it. They said, well, no, we'd rather give you some time. And I feel like they switched it to 6 months, which I thought was kind of funny because they said, oh, we still expect to save money by putting it at 6 months. But realistically, most people got dropped from residual even sooner than that.
Yeah.
So I think right now that's the rule, is that you stay on residual for 6 months. And then if during that time you then get your Medi-Cal reinstated, then you'll go back to having your regular IHSS program and it will continue on. The thing about it is that residual does have a lower cap on the number of hours you can get. So if you're like, you got protective supervision, you're at 283 hours. When you lose your Medi-Cal and you get shifted to the residual program, you'll see a notice of action that says your hours got reduced to 195. And that's how a lot of people find out, wait, hold on, something must be wrong with my Medi-Cal because they put you on the residual program and your hours just got dropped by like 80. And that's what happens. But once your Medi-Cal gets reinstated, and you get back on the correct program, you're supposed to then be able to go back and collect all the hours that you missed during that time. So if you were at 195 and then you get restored back to your 283 for all those months that you were only able to claim 195, you should be able to claim the bigger amount again.
Yeah, and just for some clarity there, forgive me if you did mention it, Dakota, but there are different Medi-Cal programs. So when Dakota mentions the residual program versus the oh my gosh, what's the standard one, Dakota? CB
There's a few different
CFCO.
ones. CFCO is the one that most parents are going to be on.
Yeah, so CFCO, so these are different types of Medi-Cal programs essentially that will be assigned to you based on your eligibility of Medi-Cal. And so some will be on the residual program with Medi-Cal, some will be on the CFCO program, some will be on the XYZ program. There's 4 of them, I think, if I remember, 4 or 5. And so traditionally, you would most normally find yourself on the CFCO program, which doesn't have any limits with IHSS hours like the residual program would. So just for clarity, that's what Dakota is referring to. And so we have seen people get switched to the residual program, which means now there's rules as to how many hours you can get, whereas the CFCO doesn't have those same rules. So that is the underlying factor there with Brittany's question. So Brittany, if you're still listening, so what would change or how this would impact IHSS? So if you have a change in Medi-Cal, whether it's a discontinuance in Medi-Cal or you get switched to the residual program, that will directly impact the IHSS income, depending on what happens, right? So that's kind of the big change with this proposal, is it could negatively impact some people's IHSS for a brief period of time. And if you get removed from Medi-Cal, like if they were to drop the asset limit all the way down to 2,000, then yes, if Medi-Cal is terminated, excuse me, over a 6-month period or however many months they're going to do before they terminate it, you would have to get that resolved in order to continue receiving Medi-Cal.
Okay.
And so, sorry, go ahead, Dakota.
I would say there were 2 clarifications, one from Teresa, one from myself. One is that when I said, so when you lose Medi-Cal, it's actually 1 month before you get dropped from IHSS. However, Medi-Cal has always had 3 months of retroactive coverage. So you'll continue to get your IHSS for 1 month. You'll lose it after 30 days. But then if you get your Medi-Cal back within 90 days, then you can then go back and get your IHSS retroactively.
Yes, and they call that the 90-day look back period. So you may see that verbiage online. You may see that if occasionally, and that's what they're referring to. 90-day look back is in regards to the Medi-Cal retroactive.
One other just thing that I wanted to mention is that they did actually propose in this year's budget to, again, make it so that you instantly get terminated from IHSS when you lose your Medi-Cal. That was proposed again this year, but that was in the January proposal. And by the time May came around, they decided to not include that one.
Get that out of there.
So that one, we didn't even have to worry about. The assembly doesn't even have to vote on it. That one, they just decided, you know what? We made more money than we thought. That was one of the things, is that from January to now, the state did get more income, more revenues than they were expecting. And so some of the more worrying measures that we saw in the January part were not included in the May revision that we're looking at now. So
that's helpful to know. Okay, Brittany, great question. If anybody else has any questions, please feel free to write it down here. We still have some time before we got to run today. Lots of time. So if you have a question,
talking about the budget, we'll talk about any special needs questions people have.
Yeah, any question that you got, like Dakota said, right? If you have a question about IHSS, a regional center, Medi-Cal, whatever it may be, please drop it here. We're happy to address. We have Miss Anna. Is it Annie? Hello, everyone. Hello to you. Thanks for being here. And thanks for the likes and the loves. Please don't forget to tag a friend or tag a support group here. That helps kind of spread these streams out that we post weekly to provide some of this information that other people may be searching for and looking for. We're really, one of the only groups or individuals that go live on a weekly basis to talk about these things. And so whoever you think this could benefit, tag them, share this with them. And the likes and loves also help as well. So thanks for being here. And that's also for Facebook and for YouTube. Okay.
Now, one other sort of general thing. Oh, sorry. I'll say this one thing and then we can get to the question. All right.
Sure.
Another general thing that is somewhat prevalent in the budget this year, but this is more so just sort of like the aftershocks of last year, is how some programs are affecting the immigrant community, undocumented or people with, what do they call it? Unsatisfactory immigration status. It's sort of follow-ups on things from last year, like they had put a $30 premium for people with unsatisfactory immigration status. They're proposing bumping that up to $50. I think IHSS is also have some things with undocumented or people who cannot be covered by the federal government that may lose access to, they might get share of costs or they might get other things like that. But I'm not seeing like a ton of changes in regards to that, just a few that are similar to things we saw last year.
Fair enough. And then question in regards to the budget and kind of the finalization of it. So just, I can take this one for you. So Dakota kind of went over a little bit about how we've come to not fruition just yet, but there's been stages here. So there's a January stage and now we're at the May stage where they're sort of coming together as to what's going to be realistic moving forward. And it appears that that $2,000 asset limit right now doesn't seem to be realistic from what we're gathering. So we're hoping that it's not going to go through. Things, of course, could change, excuse me. And so we would know for sure by June 15th. Dakota, is June 15th the correct date?
Yes, I believe they're supposed to have signed their final agreement by June 15th. Now there's a roadmap after that of what they call trailer bills, and that's going to be June 30th, and then they finalize those things on, you know, there's some roadmap, but like deciding what the actual plan is and which things they're going to accept or deny, that's June 15th.
Got it. Perfect. And then Teresa, also, if you lose your Medi-Cal, you can file for a hearing and ask for aid paid pending, and that will extend your Medi-Cal until a ruling is made. That can give you time to get the waiver.
That's good. I mean, it's a good idea. I didn't know if you wanted me to comment on that, but yeah, I mean, that is sort of the purpose of aid paid pending. Is if you think there's a mistake, if you think there's something that they didn't do wrong. I mean, aid paid pending is for any time you lose your hours. Mm-hmm. You can ask for a hearing, and as long as it's within 10 days of your notice of action, then you can get aid paid pending. And that is saying you will continue to get what you have been getting from IHSS until the ruling comes out. And if you fix Medi-Cal in the meantime, before the hearing even happens, then you don't even have to go to the hearing. You can just say, all right, problem solved, problem's fixed, gonna drop the hearing, and then you just continue on.
And the best way that I've always liked to describe it, and it may not be the most appropriate, but aid paid pending is kind of like posting bail. If you get arrested, you can post bail, sort of innocent till proven guilty, right? And so that's kind of the concept, where if benefits are removed, hours are taken away, but it's wrong, or you want the ability to argue your point as to why it is wrong, you do have the right to have those things stay intact and remain intact until a judge makes a ruling otherwise, right? So that's how Dakota, you already know I use so many different unnecessary ways of remembering these things, but that's just
I'll
how
have
my
to think about that one. It's a minefield of an analogy, but there might be some gold in there.
I like analogies. All right. To speed up the transition to the waiver, and by waiver, that's the institutional deeming waiver through Medi-Cal. If you don't know, Dakota knows. I'm talking to you, viewers here. To send that to your social worker and make sure you are receiving at least one qualifying service from Regional Center. So the qualifying service, that is a purchase order or a purchase agreement. I can't remember the exact term, but so you can get the waiver from Regional Center if you are using Regional Center. That doesn't mean that if you are a client of the Regional Center, you automatically get the waiver. There are a lot of folks who have Regional Center services, but they're not using the Regional Center services, right? So in order to get the waiver, you do have to have at least one qualifying service, like I think it's still up to $1,000, I think. So that'd be like respite services, where Regional Center will pay for a caregiver to help you out, give you a break. It's like free babysitting. It could be paying for a day program if your loved one is an adult and they want to go to dance class or art class or something like that. Regional Center can pay for those classes on a monthly basis. Boom, that's your one qualifying service right there. Free diapers, right? They could pay for diapers. They could pay for, I think, even formula and some stuff in some weird capacity. I'm not sure exactly, but there are some services like this that you can talk to your worker, your caseworker at the regional center for, and you could say, hey, I'd like to pursue the waiver. If you don't have any services in place, maybe you're new to regional center, maybe you haven't dabbled into that just yet, talk to your caseworker and say, hey, here's some of the current challenges we face for our loved one, for our child, whoever this may be. What are some of the services that we can use to help with these challenges? And which of those services could be used so that we can also get the waiver for Medi-Cal? And your caseworker at regional center should be able to take care of you from there. That's the hope at the very least. Okay, let's see here. Brittany has another question. Oh, I did hear about that. Thank you for confirming. Of course, Brittany. And Brittany again, how long does regional center have to provide the DME waiver for Medi-Cal? So there is no real timeline or deadline for them with this. Not that I've seen. I have never seen an actual deadline like written in stone. I will tell you it's going to be a 6 to 9 month process most likely. Oh, does Teresa have something to add there?
Teresa said she looked up some information. Now, I think this, again, it's not a deadline, but that it typically takes between 30 to 90 days. 30 on the side of if you already have the services in place, then
I'm sorry, for the waiver at regional center?
For the institutional DME waiver? Yes, that's what you said.
Okay. So I don't know where she got that information. I would love to know, because that would be amazing. I think that would be the hopeful reality. But Dakota, what has been your experience when working with some families who have applied?
Yeah. That's what she said. All right. Well, you two can fight about it later.
Not fighting at all. I think that came off wrong. I apologize. But sorry, what did you say? Give her a microphone. Give her a microphone.
We might if she keeps giving us corrections. All right, let's move on.
Okay.
This is a good one. This is what everybody always wants to know about. So, Lisa, how does sick pay hours work? I got the message saying they expire on June 30th. Okay, so there are several things you need to know about sick pay. One is, well, I guess just, that how you use it is that when you're sick, put in your sick hours, you get paid your normal hours as a provider. But the thing about this, and what everybody always hears when they get the mail, is that it'll say, you have sick pay hours and you have to use them before July because they do not roll over. It doesn't say all those things, but it basically says that. People are always like, I have to use my sick pay hours? What if I'm not sick? What's going on? What they're trying to tell you is that, unlike some other jobs that are very nice and let you accrue sick hours over years, IHSS isn't like that. If you don't get sick and you don't use your sick pay hours, you just lose them, right? You'll get new ones at the start of the next year, like July going forward. You'll have a whole nother set of sick pay hours.
But they don't roll over.
They don't roll over. If you've got 30 hours right now, July 1st, those 30 hours go away, you get a new 30 hours or however many it is. So if you want to utilize those and get the most out of your employment, right, then you have to do that before June 30th when all the old hours go away and you get new hours. Now, we've had a lot of discussion back and forth about under what circumstances you can use your sick pay. I have seen plenty of people say that they just work their regular hours and then they just slap the sick pay hours right on top of that. However, there's nothing official that says that you can or are supposed to do that. The official things say, in the most general sense, you use your sick pay hours when you're sick. Duh. And when you think about it sort of from an employer perspective, it would be very weird for someone to show up to work and work their normal job and also call out sick at the same time. And it would similarly be weird if someone worked 5 days a week Monday through Friday, and then called out on their days off and said, I'm sick, I need pay. So logically, it's a little weird to claim all of your normal hours and also claim sick pay, but we have seen a lot of people say that they do that. But I always say, out of an abundance of caution, get one of your family members to cover a day, right? Do it like respite. If you don't get sick, get grandma, get mom or dad, get a sibling to do IHS for a day. Take the day off. Take a mental health day and use your sick hours for that. Like, I think that's the safest and most legal way to use your sick pay hours. But that, you have to figure out for yourself what you think is the best idea there.
I think that's a great point there at the end, Dakota. Because it's in line with what I think I want to share briefly, and it's more of a personal note, I think, but also as somebody who really loves and appreciates the fact that we have support for families with special needs and disabilities, right? Programs like IHSS really, really helped my family. It's a very personal impact, right? And as advocates over the years, Dakota and I have broken bread with county employees and people who work on the other side. And the conversations and stigmas with social services, there's a lot of fraud, right? And that's not a secret. And it's in the news right now. They're uncovering a lot. And although this is kind of a small thing, it's 30 hours of sick pay or whatever it may be, take note that there is, I think, a message of integrity here that we all have to have. If you are a provider or a caregiver of somebody with special needs, if you are using these funds and resources to care for this individual, pay yourself a fair wage. Just know and remember that there's a lot of garbage that goes on with these programs wrongfully, right? And so this is an opportunity to sort of separate the things that are very controversial in social services when it comes to fraud. And so, like Dakota said, if you feel in your heart that you should claim these hours because they're sick hours, that you are entitled to claim them, have somebody else work those hours at that time. A family member, somebody, you are entitled to the 6 hours. They don't have to be thrown away and rolled away, right? We wouldn't agree necessarily for you to work them at the same time, or claim those hours and claim the sick pay at the same time. That doesn't, like Dakota said, doesn't sound right to us, even though there's no real rules for it technically from what we've gathered or haven't been able to gather. So we leave that in your hands. But as somebody who really cares and appreciates the benefits that we have, I'd like to see them continue. I'd like to see our families taken care of. Just keep that in mind. Okay, sob story over. Thank you, Dakota. So a couple quick questions, kind of speed round because we're getting close to the end here. Oh, Estella, happy Friday to you. Good afternoon. For twins, can both parents be providers? One works full time.
Yes, no worries whatsoever. Now, this used to be a big deal about parents working full time, not working full time. Multiple kids in the home. All that used to be a big hullabaloo. Not anymore. Several years ago, they removed all of the rules concerning parent-provider work hours, work status. And now both parents can be providers. One parent can be a provider. Neither parents can be providers. Whatever, doesn't matter. Now, if one works full-time, they might have a hard time filling in all that time. But it's not a concern as far as IHSS is concerned. It's just, figure out for yourself what you can make work.
Yep. All right. Ernie, can you explain more about personal assistance through Regional Center? Yes, I could take this one. So a PA, personal assistant with Regional Center, is similar to that of Respite, but a little bit more versatile. So Respite Services is free babysitting. That is where Regional Center will pay a individual of your choosing or of their choosing to come and give you a break if you are the caregiver. If you watch them full time, a respite worker can come in, family member, friend. They can watch them for a few hours a day or a few hours a week, whatever you've been approved for, so that you can run errands. You can go on a date, go to the gym, go to the beach, relax, whatever you need to do. But respite allows you to rest a bit, right? That's kind of the running message there. A personal assistant, this is somebody, like I said, it's a bit more versatile. So this personal assistant can take this person sometimes into the community if approved. Personal assistant can spend time at them with the house and have like a focused agenda rather than just babysitting. So if this personal assistant is there to help them with certain tasks or help them grow certain skills, if that's a part of the agreement with the personal assistant, then that's what they're there for, right? So my sisters with Down syndrome, they had a personal assistant, which was another sibling of ours, right? And that personal assistant would come and take them into the community, take them on walks, get them exercise, get them socialized, and that was a part of the duties of the personal assistant. Respite can't do those things. Respite is solely in-home babysitting, in-home relief, if that makes sense. So can you explain more on the personal assistant? Let me know if that helps answer the question. If you have more questions about that, please let us know. Back to Annie. My son is 20. Oh, sorry.
It's a long one. I'll read it, and Teresa's going to post the second half because it got cut off on our end. Oh, my goodness.
Perfect.
My son is 27-year-old, diagnosed with autism level 3, intellectual delay, bipolar disorder with manic, CP, and epilepsy. Social worker took away PS after 7 years, saying he is able to follow prompts and direction, but it is because I have to physically direct him. I found out she changed his 3 mental functioning from 5 to 2. So they are trying to say he is not as severe as he was. I don't know how a person can go from a 5 to a 2 in a year. Nothing has changed, but that is the reason they gave. Oh, and because I got it. Well, yeah, here it is. Because I have a lock on the door, but what does that have to do with him being non-self-directing because of his mental impairments and mental illness? Ooh, great question. So 2 things that I want to say about. I mean, one, really sorry that this happened. It's really terrible, especially after 7 years. And so he's in his 20s as well. 27 years old. Like, it's how much do we expect someone who's had PS since they were 20 years old?
They were already an adult at this point.
Yeah, they're already an adult. From 20 to 26, they've needed protective supervision, and all of a sudden 27 just magically switch flips, and they're like, nope, not all of a sudden it's self-directed. It's crazy. But 2 things I want to mention. One, to your question about moving from 5 to 2 and all that. One odd thing about protective supervision and the mental functioning is that the only 3 levels they have is 1, 2, and 5. You've probably filled had the doctor fill out the SOC 821, the mental functioning for protective supervision form. And on there it says, for memory, orientation, and judgment, no problem, moderate, or severe. And when they say no issues, moderate, or severe, moderate is 2. So it goes 1, 2, and 5 on that scale. So when they say they went from a 5 to a 2, they really just mean he went from severe to moderate. But the other thing I wanted to say, because this happens so often, is when they say about the lock on the door. This comes up so often when they say, oh, you've put something in place that eliminates the danger. So no protective supervision needed. And there is a tension, a back and forth tension here that so often gets misused. So it does say in the regulation that if you can take steps to modify the home in some way to eliminate the danger, then the person no longer needs protective supervision, because something other than a person being there with them solves the problem. So oftentimes they'll point to, oh, you put locks, you have an alarm system, you have a camera system, some things that really don't solve the problem, but they help a little bit. But the locks is an interesting one, because so there's that one regulation says if you make modifications that solve the problem, then they don't need protective supervision. There's then another regulation that clarifies that one. It says, just so you know, if a person is non-self-directed, you can't just lock them in a room and call it good. That is not an acceptable solution to a person's behaviors to substitute protective supervision. It says that can be done. You can put a lock on the door in addition to providing protective supervision, because that helps keep them safe. It slows them down. It makes it so that they're less likely to elope. But you can't just lock them in a room and leave and call it all good for safety reasons. And another further clarification of the law says that applies to locking the home itself. So you can't lock them in a room. You can't lock them in a house just because they elope and call it mission accomplished. That's specific laws and regulations that say that that is not an acceptable solution instead of protective supervision. Now, this does only apply to a person who is non-self-directed, but they can't say he's self-directed because you have a lock. That just doesn't work. If he elopes and it's a danger, then the lock helps, but it cannot be a substitute for protective supervision in any circumstance.
Well said.
That's my TED talk done. We can get back to our regularly scheduled questions and such.
All right. Teresa's yelling at me again. She said, I said it wasn't a deadline, just an average of 30 to 90 days, depending on if you already had Medi-Cal. Okay. Thank you, Teresa. Yes. That is a average timeline. I'd say that's still very, very positive, but no, wonderful. Thank you as always. Agenics, can we have a PA in respite regardless of the age of the kid? I asked the social worker for a personal assistant, and they said because of her age, only respite. Yes, you can have both, and it does not matter. So there is two types of personal assistants. There are PAs for adults, and then there is a PA for minors. So yes, if you have a child that's under 18, they can have a personal assistant. However, that personal assistant's responsibilities, I do believe, are slightly more restricted and less versatile than it would be for an adult. But you can get a personal assistant for a child.
And now, to clarify, because I think this is true about most regional center things, and you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, because you probably know a bit more than I do. But for most regional center services, they do have to be shown, one, the need for the service, and that whatever they're currently getting is not sufficient, and that you can't get similar or the same care elsewhere. So what they could be saying about the age might be that they have not tried respite or some other service enough to see that there is a clear need for the personal assistant at this time. Does that seem like reasonable? That might be what they're trying to say?
Yeah, I mean, so it's not news for caseworkers to tell parents that there's no PAs for children. So we've heard that, and that's just a flat out lie, right? Mm-hmm. So if they're telling you, oh, that service is not available because they're a child, you got to wait till they're 20. That's just wrong. It's just not true. But Dakota is correct. They do want to not restrict, but they want to be able to justify a service. So they don't want to approve a service that, one, you may not even use, and two, do you even have time in the schedule for it? Does it even make sense, right? Because if the child has 8 hours of school a day, and then afterwards they have 3 hours of therapy, and then after that it's dinner time with you and then bedtime, there's not a whole lot of room for respite. There's not a whole lot of room for PA. So in those scenarios, they may reject the request, or they may give you very, very little of it. And so there does have to be a need. There does have to be some justification there for why you should have it. But you can have both services. They can be approved at the same time. It can be for a minor or an adult. It does not matter. Just make sure you justify the cause or the reason as to why you need it. I think we have room for another question or two. Annie, the thing is all I have is 2 other doors in the house he can get out of that have easy latches to get out of the home. The one with the main lock is the front door. Well, that goes right in line with what Dakota was saying earlier, right? Just because you have a lock on the door, it doesn't eliminate the main reason as to why this child will remain safe or should remain safe. The one element here, the one foolproof method, is the constant supervision provided by the adult, right? A lock is not going to provide that. A lock can assist. And if you can't have that same lock on the back door for some weird reason, that is also another reason as to why it's not a completely preventative measure or a complete full 100% proof preventative measure. But thank you for sharing, Annie. That was really good. We appreciate you. Thanks for being here. Rockin' Autism Journey is back in California. Welcome. Thank you. Welcome back. Shannon, is Galt offering IF services? Is that independent facilitator services? If so, no, we do not.
We thought about it for a while. We had researched it, but it's not really what we are.
It wouldn't be possible. No. Is in process of Medi-Cal. Hope to get IHSS again soon. All right. Well, good luck. Let Dakota know if you need some help. So last question about the PA. So personal assistant needs to be someone outside the house, or can it be a brother or a sister? It's a good question. So to my understanding, it can be anybody of your choosing, and I don't think that they have to live outside the home. However, that's not the same for respite. Respite can be anybody of your choosing as well, but the respite person, I don't think, can live under the same roof. Does that sound right, Dakota?
No, I think don't a lot of family members do respite for their, because I feel like a lot of times respite workers will oftentimes be like siblings who do live in the home. But I could be wrong.
I'm trying. Well, no, you're absolutely right there. I'm trying to remember if that person has to live in the home. Either way, it can be anybody of your choosing. As far as whether or not that person has to live in the home or not, or it has to be outside the home, I don't recall. I'll have to look into that. We'll have to look into that unless Teresa has been quick with the Google search back there.
I actually
We'll say we'll get back to you.
All right. Fair enough. I assume Nicole is going live in 5 minutes.
I believe so. Or Myra. Beautiful. Or both.
Beautiful. All right. Well, I think that about wraps it up for today, everybody. Thank you so much for coming by and watching the stream like you do every single week. A lot of familiar names and faces here in the comment section. Dakota, thank you for taking lead on the May revision. It's very important information, and it'll be really interesting to see how this unravels.
And I'll say, if anything significant changes, or if any big, like, problematic things get passed in the budget, we'll definitely have some follow-ups on that. I think if the asset limit gets reintroduced, or maybe introduced at a different level, we'll definitely try and get Lisa Ramsey on. Maybe she can, again, like she did last year, talk about some of the ways in which people can mitigate the effects of these changes. So again, I don't think it's going to go through as it was proposed, but if these things do happen, we'll do our best to keep you updated and give you good advice for how to deal with it.
Ditto. All right, everybody. If you speak Spanish, watch Nicole or Myra at 1 o'clock. That'll be in just a few minutes. So stick around. Follow that our Cult Advocacy in Spanish page as well if you're not already. But thank you, everybody, again for tuning in. I hope you all enjoy your weekend. Happy Friday, and have a great day. Bye, everybody.